Já jsem Pavlína Horáková a tohle je Prostor X. It is with great pleasure that I get to welcome here in our studio the ambassador of the United States to the Czech Republic, Nicholas Merrick. Hello, and thank you for making time for us.
Thank you. It's a real privilege to be here today, and I'm really enjoying my time here in the Czech Republic.
Let me start with a little confession. I did see all the episodes of the series of The Diplomat, so obviously I know everything about your job. But before we get to your job, let's talk more about you. Who is Nicholas Merrick?
I'm a Texan in the last 25 years. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I went to college at the University of Virginia, business school at Harvard Business School. Met my wife of 36 years when I was at college in Virginia, and I've lived my adult life in Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and then Dallas for the last 28 years. We have 4 children. They were all here over the Thanksgiving break. We have one son-in-law, one grandchild, and a second grandchild on the way. A lot of my background prior to my professional career was in sports. I played college football at the University of Virginia.
You had a full scholarship, right?
I did, and you earn every penny of it when you're playing college football. But there, and really before that, I figured out that I really enjoy team victories. And so, what I learned playing sports growing up, team sports versus individual sports, really played out over the rest of my life. In the various businesses and groups that I've been part of, winning as a team has always been very, very important to me. The way that I think about it is that, my mother was a teacher, college professor, and she actually, her specialty was European history. So a lot of what we talked about at the dinner table was the pre-World War I time period, where she would talk about the Habsburgs, and she would talk about the period where the great colonial powers were losing their colonies, and the growth of the modern Middle East and things like that. And her talking about that planted a seed, which I think now is sprouting in my life, being here in the Czech Republic.
What do you think she would say to you if she would know that you became the ambassador in the Czech Republic? Well,
first of all, you have to know that in Pittsburgh, everyone adds a Y to the end of your name. So they call me Nikki up there. And she would say, "Oh, Nikki, I'm so proud of you." But she would also say, with much things that are given, much is expected of you. And I think she would be proud of my marriage. I think she'd be proud of my children. She passed away 2.5 years ago. And she'd be very, very proud of this, and she would be someone who I would call every once in a while for advice. I did that quite a bit when she was alive.
Obviously, I read your bio, and I'm wondering if I would ask your closest friends about you, would they say about you? How would they describe you? Something about you that I cannot find in the official bio.
I think they would speak about loyalty. That really is a cornerstone of my life, because if someone or a group feels loyalty, then it really plants the seeds for, I think, is one of the most important things, and that is trust. I teach high school part-time, and one of the thesis statements I say to my students is that business moves at the speed of trust. And in reality, I think that life moves at the speed of trust. The more that people trust each other, the more that people trust their government, the more that you trust companies that you interact with in different groups, the more trust there is, the better there can be win-win positive results. And that's always been very core to the way I think.
You talked about your big family, 4 kids, second grandchild on the way. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Do you remember what was the first reaction when you said, we might be moving to Prague for 4 years, and I want to be the ambassador?
When I first talked to my family about the possibility, it was definitely a go for it. Dad, that would be great. We're very excited for you. I actually heard, I knew that I was about to be announced in February, but I didn't know exactly what date. One of the things that you learn in things like this in President Trump's world is that once it gets announced, that's when you know that it's really going to happen. But sometimes you don't quite know when it's going to be announced. So I knew it would be over about a week or so time period, but it happened after one day, and one of my sons texted and called me and said, "Dad, congratulations!" And they've been nothing but excited. My daughter, who has our 1.5-year-old grandson, and then a second on the way, she's in New York. So we're going to make sure that mom gets over there a lot to spend time with her. It's very important that a mother's there with her daughter when children are born, and we expect them to be frequent visitors. She just left last week. She was here for almost 2 weeks, and it was, I don't know if you've ever been over to Villa Petchek, where the residence is, but it doesn't lend itself to a little 1.5 precocious boy running up and down. So we had to move everything that he could break or grab. But it was a lot of fun having him around.
You had a 40 years of successful career in business. And I'm wondering what motivated you to leave this world and serve as a diplomat?
Several things. First of all, I have had my professional career really beginning in 1985, and I feel like I've had a tailwind the whole time of just the benefits of the United States, the benefits of prosperity that I've been able to benefit from. And over the last couple years, I found myself spending professional time doing things that you necessarily weren't financially compensated for. As I mentioned before, I was a part-time high school teacher for 13 years. Prior to that, I coached a lot of youth sports teams.
Can you tell me more about this part? Because it is interesting. You were deciding about huge investments. You didn't have to teach, but you still decided to teach. Why?
One of the most fulfilling things that that you really can do is to help mold and form minds in a positive way. So while I'm very, very proud that the United States has bestowed upon me the title of ambassador, another title that I seek and is important to me is that to be a master teacher and to really shape people and to invest in tomorrow. That's always been very fulfilling for me. So using time to do things that you're passionate about and excited about is actually joyful. And God has very much blessed me in the different roles I've had in terms of being able to be financially secure for my family. And so it's really done out of joy, and it's done out of a sense of service.
Coming back to your business career, allow me a blunt question. For people who fear that your business ties could create a conflict of interest, or that you might be tempted to open doors for businesses that you used to be connected with, what do you say to them?
I would say a couple things. And first, think of it as walls that you really can't climb over. The first one is that I mentioned probably that most important trait to me is loyalty. So I have loyalty to the United States. I have loyalty and a sense of duty to my role as ambassador. And what that means is that there never can be anything that is either an actual conflict or even would have the appearance of a conflict. One thing that the government does extremely well is that it vets and scrutinizes all of your investments, and that they mandate as a precondition of you taking this role that you dispose of any investment that they consider a potential conflict. It's very frustrating when you go through the process, as you might imagine, but it yields a good result. So I've divested of a lot of investments, and but even more than that, it's the moral obligation I have to. It's part of service. If people questioned my motivation of things, it would compromise everything we're trying to accomplish, and it really would be antithetical to the ideals of the United States of America, the ideals of service.
One of the firms that you were involved with invested in President Trump's Truth Social.
Yes.
That's something that drew attention here quite a lot. So it is unusual for ambassador to have a direct link to the president's business like that. So how would you describe your relationship with Donald Trump right now?
Well, I've been around the president several times, going back to 2016. And the group that I was affiliated with, we've supported him the whole time. And once again, I think it speaks to loyalty. There's several people who sort of jump on the bandwagon when it appears likely he's going to win or when he's going to be the nominee. But the people that I was part of, we really supported him from the beginning because we saw that we had the same ideals, and where he was trying to take the country, we were very supportive of. So the number of people who continually supported him all the way from 2016 all the way to recent times is not a big group. And President Trump also very much values loyalty. So the idea of investing in Trump Media, which is the holding company for Truth Social, I became aware of it in early 2021. So he was no longer president, but I made the business judgment that community of people who believed in him is also something that you could put into sort of an online community from which there could be a business purpose. And I think that outcome has been validated with the success of Truth Social. But obviously, as I spoke to before, there is no conflict anymore between anything I have personally and anything that has to do with the president or any other company that interacts with the U.S. government or the Czech government or does business here in Czechia. But
does that mean that you can just pick a phone and call Donald Trump if we need anything here?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. And once again, I always want to shoot straight. I believe in the chain of command. And so while I at points have had access to the president, my responsibility is to work through the chain of command. So to work through the U.S. State Department and to avail of all the resources and the incredibly talented people. That's something that has been such a pleasant surprise for me, is that, the people that I dealt with in the business world, their primary goal was to accumulate financial wealth. The people that I've interacted with in the State Department are just as smart, just as talented, just as gifted as anyone I've ever met in the business world, but they have had different ideals of public service where there's a cap on how much money they can make. And that's been something that has really had a positive impact on me.
You talked about trust. And I think with trust, what's very connected is also perception of something. And I would like to touch on the recent survey that was done by STEM here in Czech Republic. It's about basically Czech people trusting United States. And this recent survey shows that the trust in the United States has dropped by 17% to historical minimum during the Trump's presidency. What do you want to do about that? What you going to do about that?
Well, I'm not going to do anything directly about that survey. What we're going to do is we're going to stay steadfast to what we think helps the United States and helps the Czech Republic. People talk a lot about America first. America first does not mean America alone. A cornerstone of the America first policy is identifying those countries and partners that we can grow together with. One of the most wonderful things that I knew was true kind of at a big picture level, but now I've seen it more and more, is sort of the shared values and ideals that the Czech people have with the American people. Even more significant than that is that we have our 250th anniversary coming up next year. Your forefathers and ancestors, they're part of the American story in a very significant way. In Texas, where I live, there's a strong Czech community in Central Texas. You could go to some of those towns when they have their festivals, and I don't think you could see anything different there than you would see in some of the small towns in Prague, in terms of the traditions, the costumes, the language, the food, things like that. So you're a big part of our story, we're a big part of your story. And when you go back to the end of World War I, the relationship between Tomáš Masaryk and Woodrow Wilson, we've been there for the Czech people during World War II. Unfortunately, Patton was told to stand down. We all wish he could have continued all the way to Prague. And then we certainly were there for you in the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the rise of freedom and democracy here. We're in a period right now of a lot of change. And when a lot of change is occurring, people can feel uncomfortable. So my guess is a lot of the numbers in that survey reflect people's lack of comfort with the situation right now.
That all sounds great, but when we hear America first, and that's an agenda that you are tasked with advancing here, we sometimes, people in Europe mostly, hear America first, allies second. That's a one thing. And then a second thing is, for example, President Trump said during his campaign that he would encourage Russia to, and this is exact words, do whatever the hell they want to NATO allies who don't spend enough on defense. That statement raised some eyebrows, obviously. So my question is, are the relationships, when we hear this, are they still strong? Because the trust in Czech Republic is dropping. And we hear statements like this from the President of the United States that worry us.
The senior-most people in the United States government, President Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and other senior people in the State Department have reiterated to us how important Europe is. It is foundational to the interests of the United States from a trade standpoint, from a security standpoint, but also from a shared culture and shared value standpoint. That's why you hear people talking so much about the shared values. That's why you hear our concerns about things like enforcement of the Digital Secure Services Act and things like that really, really trouble us. What I think you'll find is that the United States will double down in a more positive way with those European countries that we're on the same page with. And what I can say very, very fortunately is the Czech Republic is one of those. The Czech Republic has been a great ally of the United States in so many different ways. And what President Trump is saying is that for our way of life, freedom, democracy, free enterprise, for those things to continue, changes need to be made. I think that if people look, most of the changes that President Trump talks about are things that the United States needs to fix on its own. Some part of that relates to our allies. Say, for instance, in defense, I think everyone would agree that the United States has historically played an outsized role in the defense of Europe. I think that everyone would agree, as President Havel said back in 1990, that European countries need to do more to defend themselves. They have agreed to that in concept with the Hague commitments of going from the current roughly 2% on average up to 5%, 3.5% of pure defense, 1.5% of things that have a crossover effect. But now we need to see those numbers turned into actual military capabilities. That's one of the reasons that we really applaud and welcome Czechia into the family of the F-35. It is a very unique and special group, and it is the weapon system of tomorrow. It's the weapon system that NATO will use to create strength. And strength is deterrence, and when there's strong deterrence, then you reduce the issues with outside countries creating problems or threatening you.
You met with both of our prime ministers, the outgoing and the incoming one. Which one did you like better? I'm just kidding. No, I understand you're not going to answer that. But in all seriousness, the one that is leaving is considered...
Let me say this.
Yes.
I have great honor and respect for anyone who serves. So anyone who is in a role like that, President Pavel, Prime Minister Fiala, perhaps, I don't know the right word to say, but perhaps to be announced soon, Prime Minister Babiš, each one shares the common identity of public service. Each one could probably do other things that might bring them more money or more fame or whatnot, but I respect anyone who's engaged in public service. And so when I meet any of them, that's first of all what I think.
But the reason why I'm bringing this up is that Prime Minister Petr Fiala had a very different approach to the government spendings on defense. And when it comes to Babiš, the new, probably to be announced prime minister, he is saying that, for example, the 5% goal he's very skeptical. He's saying that it's not possible. So, and also when you look at the majority that he's creating with the far right SPD party, whose leader, Tomio Okamura, a long time already is spreading the pro-Russian disinformation stuff, and also is pro the Czech Republic leaving NATO and leaving the European Union. When you see all of that, aren't you worrisome about, fulfilling the goals you were talking about earlier?
Sure. I'm going to be able to answer your question and a question you asked before in one, because I think it's important. I think that when you're going through periods of change and you talk about leaders and you mention what they say on the campaign trail, I think it's important to watch the movie. Don't look at any one picture and try to draw significant conclusions. Look at the movie. So in the case of President Trump, look at all the things that he's been doing to show that we do need to change things. Czechia, NATO, they need to invest more in defensive capabilities because strength is deterrence. And if they had invested more historically, perhaps Russia would not have invaded Ukraine a few years ago like they did. So with Mr. Babiš and the new government, my observation is that Czechia is a center country, that it does not like extremes to either end. Now, there's always some group of people who represent extremes, but I think the consistency of Czechia is something that I'm really counting on. And Mr. Babiš ran, I think, on a pretty similar platform to what President Trump ran. He ran on what's been said to me as a Czechia first platform.
That's true.
Yes, and I think that's great, but also part of being Czechia first is honoring the obligations. And there's an obligation within NATO that every country matters. It doesn't work where even the smallest countries or the medium-sized countries say that, oh, we don't matter in the big picture. The only way that there will be real strength, which leads to deterrence, is if everybody participates. And so, it is not our job to get involved in the internal politics of any country. It's not my job, and I'll never do that. But I'm thinking more about where I think this will go, not actually the extreme rhetoric of what you heard during the campaign.
There's an internal debate in Czechia about continuing or scaling down the arms supplies to Ukraine. Again, the prime minister to-be, Andreji Babiš, said that he will not allocate any national funds to aid Kiev with arms. Under your tenure, how will the U.S. and Czechia coordinate the Ukraine support?
Well, specifically, I think you're talking about the ammunition initiative.
Yes.
The United States looks upon that very favorably. Different countries have different strengths, and Czechia's way of marshaling the munitions and being the primary supplier to Ukraine of certain types of artillery shells has been a huge positive and a very significant positive, and one that my understanding can't be replicated in the short to medium term with any other country. That I'm told that economically and financially it's a positive if you take into account taxes and jobs and all those sorts of things for the Czech economy. But that's really up to Mr. Babiš and the ruling coalition. They'll decide whatever they want to decide, but we clearly will express our view that we're very, very much for it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great example of where Czechia has punched above its weight. When I was in Washington, D.C., going through my interviews and then hearings and then the teach-ins and consultations, I kept on hearing that. This is a country that's a great ally that punches above its weight. My natural curiosity has always been, what does that mean? What specifically are we talking about? I think the munitions initiative is a great example of where Czechia has created an oversized benefit relative to its size within NATO. And also, I really, really applaud Czechia for the way that it's taken in so many Ukrainian refugees. And I think, as best I can see, the country's done a great job of assimilating those people and providing help and support. And I know a lot of the Ukrainians are adding significantly to the Czech economy and overall Czech society.
So when you spoke to Andrej Babiš, did you talk about the 5% GDP goal for defense spending? Did he say that he is willing to go that forward? Because, as I said, he was saying that the 5% is unrealistic.
One thing I'll say about Mr. Babiš is that he is incredibly respectful of the rules and constitutions of the Czech government, so that in my conversations with him, he's not yet the prime minister. He can't speak for the government. And he was very, very clear that he was not in a position nor willing or able to do that. So I really respect that. But yes, for sure, this is of significant importance to the United States that this continues. As we've heard President Trump, Secretary Rubio, and others talk about, we want to stop the war in Ukraine. We want to stop the killing. Every negotiation, every discussion that's going on is done in consultation with all of our European partners. We want what results. We want the people of Ukraine to know and to feel comfortable that they will not be invaded any other way going forward. We want Ukraine to be a sovereign country, and we want Ukraine to prosper economically. Part of America First is helping all European countries become infected with the ideas that will promote more economic growth. Because the answer to every question you've asked about spending and about priorities, if the overall pie is growing, there's more opportunity to do more things. The concept, and I refer to it often, is shared prosperity. Mm-hmm. You just can't have a few people getting very wealthy. That prosperity needs to be across all classes of people, because when people feel like things are going to get better, then they have a stake in the system. Then they think, I'm working hard for my children and my children's children, and I can see benefits now, and I can see even more benefits in the future. That's the America First message. We want to find people that are part of that team. I think Mr. Babiš totally understands that, which is why he ran on a Czechia First platform. And I'm sure, I did not examine all of his campaign promises, but I'm sure a lot of it had to do with how can we better the lives of people in the Czech Republic every day. But a big part of that is strength, military strength, which leads to deterrence. And it's very hard to have military strength without economic strength. When you look at Europe, my understanding is that Europe's share of global GDP has declined from 1990. I think it was about 25%, and today it's about 14%. That should be ringing the alarm bells in every country in Europe. Europe possesses the capabilities to grow much quicker than it is right now. The United States struggles with a lot of things we hear out of the EU. We heard Secretary Landau just even talk about this yesterday, where we talk to the same countries, and on NATO we're on the same page, but then when they put on the EU hat, we hear more conflicting messages. Now, the good news is that Czechia is not one of those countries. We are very, very like-minded with the people in this country. We believe the same shared values, and we think that Czechia will be going forward. Part of what I view as my job as ambassador is to highlight in a more significant way what a great partner Czechia has been, what a great partner they are today, and then how much of an even better partner they will be going forward. You have some world-class companies in this country. You have world-class workforce in certain areas. And what happens when that is true, you'll have more investment in this country, and it's great to see that a lot of Czech companies are investing in the United States. That's America first, that's Czech first.
When you mentioned the conflict between the European Union and NATO and the United States, could you be more specific?
Well, I think that there's the issues with rules that stifle free trade. I think a lot of it has to do with what we would call in the United States First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, and so on, where we have seen the Digital Services Act act as a block. I know that right now they've imposed a fine on X, Elon Musk's company, and I really can't tell you. That's a big problem for a lot of people in the United States when they feel like those shared values, the values that really differentiate our Western civilization from other systems that either have been in the past that had horrible results or other competing systems that are out there today. When we see countries that we think are even slightly merging away from that, we consider that a problem. And part of the way you treat an ally is that with every country, you're going to have conflict. It's just a natural precondition of nation states working together. What separates allies from non-allies is how you work through conflict. And one of the ways we're working through conflict right now is clarity, truth, and then differentiating between those that you have the same values and you're in the same direction with and those that you're not. Through what you're saying, there is one thing that comes to my mind, and I don't want to have a discussion about Donald Trump with you and his values or what he represents. But let's be honest, he is a person that polarizes people. Some love him and some are worried because he is a person that is a symbol of unpredictability, sharp language, and, for example, the 2020 election denial. When you look at the data in the Czech Republic, the perception of Donald Trump is, again, more negative than positive. And you represent Donald Trump administration here in the Czech Republic. So I wonder, how do you personally handle it? If, let's say, Czech citizen or a Czech student comes to you and asks you, do you agree with everything Mr. Trump says? Or what about the election denial in 2020? What do you say to that? First of all, I just don't serve President Donald Trump. I proudly serve President Donald Trump, and I proudly serve the United States of America. President Trump won a mandate in the 2024 election. This is some inside baseball to United States election, but the battleground states, the number of votes that he won, all of those things spoke very clearly that his priorities were aligned with the electorate, and they want him to get things done. When you get things done, it can be messy. And during that period of messiness, it can breed confusion and a little bit of chaos, but it yields to better results. And that you have a press and a media who I think everyone would agree has historically been naturally biased against him. So they tend to present the negative in a very broad spectrum. And when good things happen or when he gets great results, it doesn't get quite as much coverage. So once again, what I say is that don't get caught up in any one picture. Look at the movie. Look at the things that really matter to, if I'll take it from the perspective of American households, what really matters? What really matters are your wages growing? how high is inflation? How safe do you feel? And then, are we building good alliances and doing business with other countries in a fair and sustainable way? And are they sharing the burdens with us? And are we also participating together in the opportunities? That's what I would say.
But on a personal level, do you find that challenging?
I don't, not at all. That coming from a college football perspective, and both of my sons played college football, there's coaches that have all sorts of different personalities in their approach to doing things. And you can see people with two different styles that are both successful. But once again, I am very proud to serve President Donald Trump and to serve the United States.
Do you have any personal goals for your stay here, for the 4 years that you're going to spend here, learning Czech, learning something new about Czech culture, or visiting specific places that you would like to see?
I am all in. I may go to other places in Europe, but 100% of my imagination and my curiosity is Czech and Czech only. I'm taking my first trip outside of Prague later this week. I'm very excited to do that. And most likely this is about a 3-year tour, and I want to visit as much of this country and to experience it in all the different seasons and all the different things that it has to offer. And if I go somewhere else, great. But I am all in on a Czech and Czech only experience.
You also brought in koláče from Texas. Have you tried the Czech version of it already?
I've tried all the Czech food, and I really, really like it. But I do have to pace myself because I want to not have all my pants altered all the time because it's all very filling. But yes, I've had all the different dishes and enjoyed it quite a bit.
So how is your Czech doing?
My Czech is okay. And I was thinking because everyone warned me that you were such a tough interviewer and you would ask me so many difficult questions and I would be sweating and I wouldn't know how to answer. So I grabbed a phrase that I thought would be appropriate. Do you want me to try it now? Teď si dám pivo.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That was the ambassador of the United States to the Czech Republic. Thank you so much for making time for us. And next time I promise to be tougher.
Thank you.
A to už je z dnešního Prostoru X vše. Jen připomenu, že záznam tohoto dílu společně s těmi ostatními naleznete jako vždy na reflex.cz. Poslechnout si nás můžete také na všech podcastových platformách. Já se s vámi pro dnešek loučím a těšíme se opět příště. Na viděnou.